Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with my action figure review of AEW All Out from Chicago, Illinois. Trigger warning, this pay-per-view got real violent real fast, with blood feuds and a shockingly brutal heel turn. Check out one of my more lighthearted videos if you're on the squeamish side. But for everyone else, let's channel ECW and take it over to the action figures. I'm interested in other people's opinions. What's better, a pre-show full of talking and no wrestling, or a pre-show full of wrestling and no talking? Either way, AEW does the latter, and it kicks off with the acclaimed easily defeating the Iron Savages. In trios action, the premier athletes Tony Nese, Arya Daivari, and Josh Woods take on the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara with Hologram. Predictably, the team with a set of champions gets the victory. We get more trios action as the Bang Bang Gang minus Jay White defeat the Dark Order in what could have been a match on Rampage. Injured hometown girl Sky Blue comes out for an interview with Tony Schiavone, but gets attacked by Mariah May, who still refuses to have her championship celebration. Queen Aminata makes the save. And finally, you guessed it, even more trios action. But this time, it's a triple threat, as Top Flight with Action Andretti, in Top Gun-inspired outfits, takes on the Undisputed Kingdom and Shane Taylor Promotions with the Beast Mortos. After a high-flying, chaotic match, Roderick Strong gets the win for the Undisputed Kingdom. And now it's actually time for the main card. We get an ominous video package before MJF makes his entrance, complete with a giant Thank Me Later flag. Daniel Garcia, on the other hand, skips his entrance and attacks MJF before the bell. Max sells his neck from Will Ospreay's Tiger Driver, but still dominates much of the match, busting Garcia open and taunting the crowd. It slowly turns into a technical wrestling contest with lots of submission holds, which plays into Garcia's strengths. But MJF's heel cheating is too much, as he distracts the ref, hits a low blow, and gets the roll-up pin for the victory. Max goes to shake Danny's hand afterwards, and of course tries to hit another low blow, but Garcia is ready for it, and MJF gets hit in the balls instead. Then he nails Max with a pile driver from the second rope, and leaves through the crowd to a babyface pop. Up next, the Young Bucks defend their AEW Tag Team titles against two-thirds of the AEW Trios champions, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, represented here by my crappy attempt at customizing a goatee painted on TJP. I do have my eye on new Claudio and Wheeler figures in the near future though, so keep an eye on the channel for that unboxing. It's your typical Young Bucks match, with the brothers hitting an EVP trigger and pumping up their sneakers for a super kick party, but it's the big swing from Claudio that really pops the crowd, even though I personally hate that move. In the end, Matthew gets his knees up and blocks the fastball special, then, while Nicholas holds Claudio, he rolls up a stunned Wheeler for the win. That's the second roll of victory from out of nowhere in a row. The curse of bad finishes on AEW pay-per-views continues. Next, Will Osprey defends his international title against one-third of the AEW Trios champions, Pac. More importantly, as arguably two of the best British high flyers of all time, and with Osprey admitting he followed in Pac's footsteps, this was an actual dream match where the title felt secondary. There's surprisingly little high flying though, and it ends when Pac reverses the Oz Cutter and tries for a Poison Rana off the top rope, but Osprey lands on his feet. He hits a hidden blade, but Pac kicks out. So he nails the bastard with a Styles Clash and another hidden blade to pick up the win, retain his championship, and claim the mantle of Best British High Flyer. But the title of Best High Flyer in the world is still up for debate, as Ricochet watches on from backstage. I can't wait for that rematch. In our first women's action of the night, yes, including the pre-show, Chris Statlander takes on Willow Nightingale in a Chicago street fight. Surprisingly, the CMLL women's title isn't on the line. It's a pretty decent hardcore match, with some of my favorite spots including Willow hitting Statlander with light tubes, both women going off the stage through a table, and the former alien doing a split onto some thumbtacks. Eventually, Statlander hits a tombstone, then gets a chain involved to choke out Willow and get the submission victory. Taz and Don Callis join commentary as Kazuchika Okada defends his Continental Crown title in a fatal 4-way match against Konosuke Takeshita, the Ring of Honor World Champion Mark Briscoe, and freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy, the latter of which is the only one I have a figure for, although I'd like to get Mark Briscoe if I'm able to find him. There's 2 members of the conglomeration in this match, so they work together periodically, including when everyone hits their finishers on the champ. Takeshita runs wild for a bit until eventually Okada makes his comeback and counters an orange punch with a Rainmaker to retain. Don Callis and the Alpha in particular do not look happy. Back to women's action as Mercedes Moné defends her TBS championship against Hikaru Shida, with notably the Brickhouse Camille banned from ringside. Early on, there's actually more heat at the commentary desk than in the ring, as Taz and Shivani compare resumes in a hilarious argument I really hope ends up on Botchamania. Oh yeah, the match. I'm not sure what to say because this was almost as boring as CEO vs DMD back at All In. Maybe it's time to admit that Mercedes isn't worth all the money Tony Khan is paying her. Don't get me wrong, both of these women are objectively great pro wrestlers, but they have no chemistry, the crowd was deadly silent here, and for the second pay-per-view in a row, Mercedes' match served as the clear low point of an otherwise decent card. Something about the former Sasha Banks just isn't getting over in AEW, and they need to either figure it out fast or cut their losses and tell the CEO BYE. After weirdly hesitating to use her kendo stick, Sheeta misses a Meteora and injures her knee, so Mercedes chops it and hits a Monet Maker to get the win and retain. She reunites with Camille and they celebrate on the ramp. The scapegoat Jack Perry continues to think he's a badass, arriving in his dumb black minibus following a cringy video to challenge Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. He's greeted by the Young Bucks who carry his goat head and TBS title belt to the ring. Meanwhile, once again the American Dragon enters to the final countdown and a huge ovation. But the specter of his impending retirement casts an ominous shadow over each of his title defenses. From the start, Bryan demonstrates his clear technical superiority, only losing momentum when Perry resorts to cheating, like when the Bucks interfere and have to be chased away by the BCC. We get a lame but obligatory chop battle because it's 2024. Then the Dragon signals that it's time to kick Jack Perry's fucking head in. Bryan follows up some yes kicks with a Bo Psycho knee, which strangely the scapegoat welcomes, then he secures the pin to retain. More importantly, he staves off retirement for another day. But his celebration is cut short by Jack Perry's old tag team partner Killswitch, who headbutts Danielson in the throat. The former Jurassic Express stare at each other before Christian's music plays and the Patriarchy make their way to the ring, Money in the Bank, Casino Gauntlet contract in hand. However, they're stopped by Jon Moxley and then the rest of the BCC, including Pac, who force them to retreat back up the ramp. In what seems like the first time in ages, the entire BCC embraces in the ring together. But it's a trap! Claudio blasts Bryan with an uppercut, while Pac holds back Wheeler Yuta, seemingly the only person other than Danielson who wasn't in on this. Moxley puts a plastic bag over Bryan's head and starts to choke him out while Marina Shafir arrives and kicks Bryce Remsburg. This goes on for a while before Mox finally gives up and everyone just kinda walks away, except for Yuta, who helps the doctors check on Danielson. New faction confirmed? This whole angle was as shocking as the production was sloppy. We barely saw the initial uppercut and Yuta's reaction to it, we never saw Remsburg get kicked at all, Claudio disappeared immediately after the uppercut, and Bryan choked on that bag 10 times longer than he's ever lasted in an actual chokehold, flailing about as the crowd almost jokingly chanted, "This is murder." Maybe other people felt differently, but I was neither impressed nor entertained by whatever this was. Finally, it's time for the real main event, as Justin Roberts clarifies the rules and the lights briefly turn off, before it's time for an unsanctioned lights-out cage match where anything goes and AEW is not responsible. Both Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page were held in separate locker rooms all night with additional security watching them. Were they gonna fight before they got to rip each other apart later on? After entrances, the cage is lowered more slowly than I've ever seen, giving Prince Nana time to flood the ring with weapons as the two men brawl around ringside. Eventually, they get inside, and the match officially starts. Swerve pulls out some family photos and staples them to Hangman's chest and face. Then he wears out a chair over Hangman's back, drops Hangman onto one of his trademark cinder blocks, and Swerve stomps the cowboy through a table. At one point, Hangman pulls out a piece of burnt wood from Swerve's literal house and tries to use it as a stake, but Strickland takes it away and stabs Page with it instead. After eating some more offense, Hangman powerbombs Swerve off the top rope, hits a deadeye for a near fall, then starts beating on Swerve with a chair while demanding he beg for mercy. But Strickland just smiles before collapsing, so Hangman rips out his grill, throws it on the ground, and proceeds to jam a giant hypodermic needle filled with what I can only assume are drugs into Swerve's jaw for some reason, before clocking him with a vicious, unprotected chair shot to the head. The ref calls for the bell, declaring Hangman Adam Page your winner by knockout, while the fans chant, "Holy shit! Holy shit!" And your final image is Hangman scream laughing down the camera. I think this is going to be a very polarizing show that boils down to whether or not you like extreme violence in your wrestling. As an ECW kid growing up, you'd think I'd be into this show, but alas, I wasn't. You see, I never really liked violence just for the sake of violence. I liked characters and stories, which ECW prioritized even more than the violence in most cases. Meanwhile, AEW doesn't seem to be able to get over feuds unless there's a title on the line. Outside of MJF, they rely too much on showing athletes having great matches, but I can get that kind of action from any real sport. I watch pro wrestling for the emotional journey that only this sport can provide. Take a look at Swerve's childhood home, for example. They literally introduced it this week. Am I supposed to suddenly care because AEW told me to? Now compare that to the Ula Fala over in WWE, which got a monster pop just from Roman picking it up during a promo. I actually care about who controls that thing, and gets to declare themselves tribal chief. Whereas frankly, I don't give a damn that Swerve invaded Hangman's house, or that Hangman burned down Swerve's childhood home, especially when both incidents were so obviously fake. And then there's the BCC. A loosely affiliated faction with a nonsensical name and dubious ethics that's rarely seen together. Why is it a big deal when they suddenly turn on one of their own? I mean, sure, I didn't see it coming, but the mere surprise of a heel turn doesn't leave an impact unless you thought they were gonna be involved with Danielson's title reign to begin with, which I didn't. So what's the point of inserting them into this? Do they want the title that was already held by their group? Do they want to help force Bryan into retirement? Are they just mercenaries for the Young Bucks? Because all of those sound dumb. As for the rest of the card, it was a lot of the same how will pre-existing injuries affect this person's story that got boring pretty quick. If you had a good time, more power to you, but AEW continues to disappoint me. All Out gets a very bloody C+. Alright, that'll do it for AEW All Out from Chicago, Illinois. Let me know what you thought of the show down there in the comments. If you liked the video, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on X at WrestlingOptimus, or see all my best figure photography over on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. I'm also on Facebook now. If you haven't seen my review of AEW All In, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.